Hello students. In this program we are going to discuss about the implementation of a message queue based inter-process communication. If you take the Unix operating system, which is a very powerful operating system, it has got the support for inter-process communication. There are actually three major facilities provided by the Unix operating system for implementing IPC. The first one is the message queue. Message queue is an implementation of message passing. We have seen that when it comes to the implementation of IPC, there are two options available. One is the shared memory based IPC and the other one is message passing based IPC. And most operating systems offer both the schemes by providing the system calls necessary for invoking either the shared memory or the message queue. So message queue is also provided by the Unix operating system, which allows the processors to send formatted data streams to arbitrary processes. Another is shared memory. So obviously Unix is providing shared memory implementation also for the processors to interact. And the third one is a semaphore. So semaphore is a mechanism by which we can synchronize the inter-process communication. See, the first two are methods of IPC, but the third one is a way to regulate them. So we can regulate the communication to avoid any synchronization conflicts by enforcing the mutual exclusion with the help of semaphore. So we will discuss about the implementation of semaphore in another later topic. So as of now, let us keep in mind that message queue and shared memory, they both are provided by Unix operating system. And now we are going to discuss about the message queue implementation. And this is a comparison of the implementation of message passing and or message queue and shared memory. So when it comes to message queue implementation, we will use these three methods. The first one is for the creation of the message queue. So when you want to establish a new message queue or you want to connect it to a process to a existing message queue, the first function to be invoked is the function of msg get. So msg get will invoke the system call, which will in turn connect the current process either with a new message queue or with an existing message queue. Similarly, the equivalent function in the under shared memory is SSM get. So SSM get will also do the same. It will either create a new shared memory or it will establish a connection with the existing shared memory for the current process. And once the connection has been established, then the next step is performing the communication. So for that we have two methods in message passing. One is msg send and msg receive, so through which we can send and receive any message. Whereas in shared memory we don't have any send receive function, because the idea of a shared memory is different from message passing. So in message passing, a message queue is like a mailbox, and you have to send and receive messages from the program or the process. For that we need system calls message send and message receive. But shared memory is a part of the process, so it's not going to be treated as a separate entity. So there is no need for any separate message system call for accessing a shared memory. So we don't have SHM send and SHM receive when it comes to shared memory. We can just use the pointers. We can use normal string pointers or character pointers to access a shared memory. But what we have on the other hand is SHM-AT. SHM-AT is just about attaching the current process with the shared memory. It's not, so and similarly we have the SHM-DT, which is for detachment. Now finally we have the MSG CTL and MSG SHM CTL. Both can be used for disconnecting. So once the communication is over, the respective processes will have to detach themselves or disconnect themselves from the, or they may have to destroy the message queue that they created, or they destroy removing the shared memory from the memory. So that is done with the help of these two last two methods. So now the next point is types of messaging. This is about the organization. So when you have a number of process who want to interact, it could either be one-to-one interaction, which is peer-to-peer messaging. So here what happens is that each process wants to send a message specifically to one particular message. So one-to-one communication is a first type of communication, which is also called peer-to-peer messaging. Whereas another category is server client based communication. So out of all the four process or n number of process, one process will act as the service provider or the server or the sender, who will send some messages to any one of for all the recipients. So all the receivers will be considered like clients and the sender will be treated like a server. This is the centralized messaging, which is second type. But whatever be the type of messaging, we can just implement it with the help of message queue. Now coming to the implementation of message queue, a message queue acts like a FIFO, in the sense that whenever messages arrive, they all get queued into the message queue. But it doesn't mean that we can only retrieve messages from the in the same order like a normal queue, but here we can retrieve messages in any order. Only thing is that the messages get queued in the message queue like a FIFO queue. That's all. It's not a full-fledged queue implementation. A process can create a message queue, or it can either connect to an existing queue. So we will see how we can differentiate the message queue creation and connecting to established one. When you create a message queue, it does not go away until you destroy it. So we can destroy the message queue using the IPCS command or IPCRM command. We won't be needing these commands for our purpose, but there are such commands available. Now to perform communication using message queue, there are the following steps to be followed. Step 1 is either you create a message queue or you connect to a already created message queue. So this is step 1. See, remember that the same message queue can serve communication for a number of processes. So not all the process need to create a message queue for themselves. They may only one process needs to create the message queue, and all the other processes, they will only connect it to the already created message queue. And the second step is write into a message queue. So sending messages. Then the third is reading message, retrieval of the message. So these three are the simple task that has to be performed. First, you either create or enroll into a message queue, and then you start communicating by sending and receiving. And the same process can send and also receive in sequence. So it's not a one-way communication. Once a process is connected to a message queue, it can both send and receive. And perform control operations on the message queue using MSG CTL, like removal of the message queue. Now we are going to see the methods or the system calls available for the various functions which we just identified. First function is for the creation or for the connection of the message queue, MSG GET. So MSG GET will take the parameters and will either invoke a creation of a new message queue or connect the current process with the existing message queue pointed by the key value. So the key value is a unique number that designates the message queue. So if the key number mentioned here either already exists, that is it is a queue ID of already existing message queue, then this will be treated as a connection request. Else, if the key already does not exist and it is not named for any message queue, then a new message queue would be created with the help of that particular key. And one more point that is okay, that is also deciding this is that the argument of the MSG flag. So the MSG flag is the one that says whether only a new message queue has to be created or it is optional, either you create a new message queue or connect to a existing message queue. So for example, if I want to implement the program in such a way that I should be able to create a new message queue, otherwise I should not be able to run the program. So in that case, I have to mention the MSG flag as IPC create along with IPC EXEC exclusive EXCL. So in that case, what will happen is that the operating system will make an attempt to create a new message queue based on the key value, but if such a message queue already exists, then it cannot be duplicated. Now in that case, because I have mentioned IPC create and IPC ECL, the program will be terminated with an error that message queue cannot be created. But if I leave this option, then the operating system will either decide to create a new message queue or to connect it to a existing message queue. So this is the MSG flag argument. Now coming to the key value, the key value is expected to be a unique value. So how do you generate a unique number? We have the various random number generators. So there is one such function called ftalk. Ftalk is a function which is a kind of random number generator, but it takes an argument like this. So the argument we have to supply to the ftalk function is the file name. It's a path of a file. So what happens is that the ftalk function will take the file name and the id value, which is second argument, and it will use these two values to generate a random unique number. So that number will be specific to these two parameters. For example, if the sender creates a new message queue using a particular file name and a particular ID name, and the receiver should also should also connect to the same message queue, only then they can communicate. So what the receiver will do is that the receiver will also mention the same file name with the same ID with the ftalk. So because ftalk will generate the same number for the same arguments, both sender and receiver will get the same key and they will connect to the same message queue. So that is the reason ftalk is used. Otherwise you have to explicitly convey the file name, that is message queue ID, to the receiver. So in order to make the receiver to properly connect to the same message queue, the sender has to communicate with the receiver with the ID value of the message queue. But with the ftalk, it's not necessary. They just both need to provide the same arguments to ftalk. They will naturally generate the same message queue ID. So this function is very useful in that particular, for that purpose. So this is what I mentioned. So when you use the MSG get, you can either mention it with the 0666 or IPC create, or only IPC create and IPC ECL. So here the option says that either you try to create a new message queue, or 0666 stands for connecting to a existing message queue. So either one of these will happen as per the condition. If the key value is unique and no message queue already exists with this queue, then it will go for IPC create. But if the key already exists, then it will opt for 0666. So the OS is now having both options. So this is just a logical view of the arrangement. So we have got a message queue which is connected by a number of processes. See, one of them would have created the message queue and all others have just joined to the or connected to the message queue. Now about sending messages to the message queue. For that also we have a method. Before going into the implementation of that method, we have to define a structure. So the purpose of the structure is that we will be bundling our data into our message into this structure. The idea is that through the message queue we can send many values together. It is not necessarily just one string that we can communicate to a process. We can send any information, any number of information through a message. So a single message can be inserted with multiple values. So what values you want to put inside a message is determined by the structure. So in this example, it's only having two members, but we can define any number of members into a structure. So the whole structure variable will be part of every message. Accordingly, we can send multiple values to a process. So let us focus on the current implementation. So here we define the structure as MSGBF and having two members. The first member is having a unique and very important role. We will see it in the next slide. So it's for a specific purpose we have declared this. And the second is actually the message. So in this example, we are just going to send a character value. So it's not going to be very very useful, but we can change the value to any other data, any other declaration. So M type, let us look at the purpose of M type. M type is used when retrieving messages from the queue. So how is it helpful? So benefit of M type. I hope you remember that during the discussion on the message queue, many raised the question. See, because in a shared memory, the processors mention the ID of the other process. So they go to the message specifically go to the destination. But with the message passing, what happens is that it's an indirect communication. That is, all the process just send their messages to the message queue, and the respective process get the messages retrieved from the message queue. So they don't directly talk to each other. In that case, how do we guarantee that when one sender wants to send a message specifically to one of the destinations or receivers, how it can convey this to the receiver? Because accidentally a wrong receiver may first get the message and the original receiver may not get the message. That can be tackled with the help of the M type. So how the messages are conceived in the message queue is that every message will have a value called M type, which can be any integer value. It's a long data type, so we can assign any integer value to a message, and the actual message is coming as another argument, another variable. So based on the M type, we can determine which receiver has to receive the message. For example, every message is assigned with the M type. So if a process wants to communicate with the different processes simultaneously, say for example A, B and C, then with the A it can send a message as the message type as 1. With to B, whenever it wants to send a message to process A, it will use the message type as 1. Whenever it wants to send a message to process B, then it will change the message type to 2. Similarly, it can use different message type numbers for different processes. And similarly, when process A wants to retrieve a message, it will only retrieve messages whose M type is 1. Similarly, process B won't receive messages which are having message type other than 2. So in this way we can restrict the communication between a particular pair of processes. And we can also use the same idea for broadcasting. For example, the sender wants to send one particular message to all of them. Every process has to receive that. Then it may use a particular number. For example, number 59 or 55 may refer to messages which are meant for everybody. So we can write the programs in such a way that process A's coding will have the statement that if M type is equal to 1, then it will be retrieved or received. Similarly, process B's coding can be written with the M type to be 2, and every process can write if message type equal to 55, then receive message. So we can control the sender and receiver with the help of the value of the M type. So it plays a very important role in the communication. So this is how it has been arranged. So every message will have a type information, and the type information is a number which is chosen by the programmer. So accordingly he can also decide which process should receive a particular message. In fact, one more point is that if a process does not know the type, it can't receive the message. For example, here the type in a particular instance, all the messages are provided the type value as 5. And if the receiver don't know that the type is should be entered as 5, then it can't retrieve the messages. It is also acting like a as a key, like an authentication key. So only if the receiver is able to provide the correct type number, it will be allowed to retrieve the message. Now the actual method we are system call or method we have got for the MSG send. So MSG send with these arguments provided. The first argument is the one that uniquely identifies the message queue, which is nothing but the return value of MSG get. So previously when we invoked the MSG get, that function has returned this ID, and that ID is what we are forwarding to the message send function, and the next argument is the pointer to the message. So for example, I have taken a input from the user, a string which I want to forward, and it's pointed by a pointer, and that pointer I have to mention here, and also note that it's a void pointer. You must be aware of the characteristics of a void pointer. If not, I suggest you to update your knowledge about it. And the next argument is specifying the size, and the size is in terms of bytes. So we have to calculate the actual number of bytes we are sending to the receiver and mention that number here. A simple technique is use the size of method. So using size of within the bracket arguments, it will automatically calculate the number of bytes and fill it here. And the last is MSG flag, which we will generally leave it 0. So we don't have to change that value for any reason. So these are the various arguments involved in the MSG send. Then comes the receive method, and the receive message is very similar. Here also we have to provide the message queue ID and the pointer to the character string array to the character array in which we want to capture the the message that was sent by the sender. And once again so all other arguments are, and one more important argument here is that the type of the message. So if the receiver provides the message type correctly, then that message which is having the same type will be retrieved and provided to the receiver. And message type can also be varied like this. See, we have got the options of 0. When you provide the message type as 0, then unconditionally messages will be retrieved. That means the system will simply retrieve the next message from the queue regardless of its message type. So these are situations where a process can simply receive a message without knowing or without providing the message queue ID. 0, argument 0. Then positive, which means you specify the actual number representing the type of the message. So you will get the exact message which is indicated by the value. The third is a negative value. So this retrieves the first message on the queue whose message type field is less than or equal to the absolute value of the message type argument. So for example, if I send -1, then it will try to check whether there is a message queue type of 1. Absolute value of -1 will be treated as the message type. So finally we are looking at the program that is implemented for the communication. So the header file that is needed for this program is ipc.h. So first we define the structure. As I told you, this is going to act as the message. This is actually the message having the type and the text. Next we invoke the MSG get function. So the 40L we haven't see in this example we are not using ftalk. So we are just randomly providing our own number which is 42L, and then we provide the 0666 or IPC creator. As I said, it's either create a new one or connect to a existing one, and it will just print the message queue ID that is returned by MSG get, and we ask the user to provide a message to be sent. So gets stored into the text, BUF text argument, and after that we have to send the message. So here one more point to be noted is that we also collect the type from the user. So every message should have two parts. One is the text part or the message part, and other one is the type part. So type part is going to be needed for the receiver to retrieve a message. So that's also stored along with the message, actual message, and finally we send them to the message queue using this function. And this I have put it in command line because it's meant for removal. So IPC RMID will remove the message queue having this message queue ID. So if you remove it immediately, it may not allow the receiver to retrieve the message. Even before that, this will get destroyed. So I haven't included it into the actual program. Now the receiver program will be very similar to the sender, except that so you have used the receive method instead of send method. So here the user has to enter the type number correctly, and that is forwarded to the receive function, and only if there are messages containing this particular type, it will be retrieved by the. And one more thing is, let's say you have got some 5 messages with the same type, it will only receive the first message having that particular type, and once received, that message is permanently removed from the message queue. Okay, so it's not a read only, it's not a read message, it's a removal of the message. So MSG receive will remove the message from the message queue. So if you have got 5 messages with the same type, first time it will retrieve message 1, second time it will automatically retrieve message 2, and it will go on to receive all the 5 messages. So this is the implementation of message queue through a program. We have seen the methods that are or the system calls that are needed for the implementation of message queue, and also a program which implements the message queue. And I'm unable to show you a demo of this program, but I can tell you what will happen if the program is executed. You will start to execute the sender first. So the sender program will it will run the loop and will keep asking you to enter a message along with the type. So you can give the pairs any number of times. For example, welcome type 1, good luck type 2, so and so on. You can create any combination of messages, and you have to then run the receiver. So when you run the receiver will just ask you to enter the type number, and you have to enter the same type number that you entered in the sender program, and you will just see that particular message retrieved and displayed on your screen. This is the demo on the implementation of message queue. Thank you.